Chapter 4767. Immortal Ling Mu asked casually. He thought that since these three children were so extraordinary and had such a sense of propriety at such a young age, they must be from a prestigious family. That was why he asked such a question. Unexpectedly, the Lotus Supreme Thearcha's next words stunned him. Once they become my disciples, they will only be disciples of the Cloud Sky Mountain. Their families have nothing to do with them, so there's no need to mention them, the Lotus Supreme Tharch said slowly. The Azure Tharch said slowly with a calm expression. He was probably the only one who dared to speak like this among all the people present. Everyone wanted to know which family these three children were from. Unexpectedly, when they heard this, they were stunned for a moment. They looked at each other and smiled at the same time. This was indeed the Lotus Supreme Thearcha's style. After becoming the Lotus Supreme Thearcha's disciples, it was best not to mention the families of the three children. Otherwise, who knew what kind of commotion it would cause? After all, if they could become the Lotus Supreme Thearcha's disciples, their families would also rise along with them. Yes. There's no need to mention it. Come. This is the first time the Lotus Supreme Tharch has brought you here. I'll give you these 3 items as a greeting gift, Immortal Ling Mu said with a smile. He took out 3 immortal artifacts and handed them to the 3 children. The 3 children could not help but look at their master, unsure if they should accept them. Since it's a gift from Immortal Ling Mu, you should accept it, the Lotus Supreme Tharch said, gesturing for the 3 children to accept it. Yes, the 3 children replied. After receiving the gifts, they bowed again. Thank you, Immortal Ling Mu. You're welcome, Immortal Ling Mu said with a smile. He gestured for the Lotus Supreme Tharch to take a seat and said, Lotus Supreme Tharch, please. He personally invited the Lotus Supreme Tharch to take a seat and sat with him. Hao and the other 2 followed suit and sat behind their master, just like the others. As they sat down, the others also sat down. The immortal servants came forward to pour wine. Celestial music sounded again, and a few beautiful fairies danced in the middle. For a moment, laughter filled the air. Lotus Supreme Tharch, we saw someone from the lower realm ascending to become an immortal today. Does the Lotus Supreme Tharch know who it is? An elder asked. Those who ascended directly from the lower realm did not become immortal lords like them. Instead, they ascended directly to become great emperors. Their statuses were far above them. However, even with their powers, they were unable to find out who had ascended to become an immortal. Everyone knows that I don't care about worldly affairs. If I'm not in my cave, I'm in closed-door cultivation. Therefore, I only know that someone has become an immortal today, but I don't know who it is, Emperor Qing said slowly. He raised the wine cup in front of him and took a sip of the spiritual wine. I didn't expect there to be so many talented cultivators in the mortal world. Some time ago, someone also ascended to the immortal world to experience the tribulation, but he failed and died. I didn't expect that after a year, someone from the mortal world would ascend to the immortal world. It's really surprising. I heard that in the lower realm, there is a female immortal who is extremely powerful and has outstanding talent. Not only that, because of her superb medical skills in alchemy, she is respectfully called the Ghost Doctor. Her name is Fengjiu. Chapter 4768. Emperor Qing narrowed his eyes and sipped his wine. He didn't seem to be interested in what they were talking about. He didn't say anything and only listened as he leisurely drank his wine. Behind him, the 3 children's eyes flashed when they heard them mention their mother. They glanced at the purple-robed man who spoke and sized him up carefully. He looked to be in his 30s. Although he didn't look very old, according to their masters, he was already a pile of old bones. Taking advantage of this moment, they took a look at the juniors who were sitting quietly behind their respective masters. Almost all of them were in their teens or 20s. Only one old man had a 17 or 18-year-old youth and a 10-year-old boy behind him. Immortal Ling Mu continued the purple-robed celestial master's words and smiled. Whether that ghost Dr. Fengjiu is as good as the rumors say, I believe we will find out in the future. Come, come, come. Everyone, let this old man toast you all. Thank you all for coming to this old man's place. As he spoke, he raised his wine cup with both hands and gestured to everyone. Seeing this, everyone also raised their wine cups and bowed. Immortal Ling Mu is too kind. It is our honor to have the opportunity to come here. Everyone chatted and drank. After a while, the dancing maidservant left. Emperor Qing looked at Immortal Ling Mu and slowly said, Immortal Ling Mu, since everyone has brought their disciples here, why don't we borrow Immortal Ling Mu's Flower Water Moon Spirit Land and let them have a competition? Hearing this, everyone's hearts trembled. They couldn't help but look at Immortal Ling Mu. Would he agree? One had to know that the Flower, Water, Moon, and Spirit Realm was a good place. If they could let their disciples go in and gain experience, it would be a great blessing. It would be extremely helpful to their cultivation. The juniors didn't know what kind of place it was, so they only looked at each other and then at Emperor Qing. They didn't expect him to make such a request. But what kind of place was that? Even if the spiritual wood immortal agreed, would the three children behind the Lotus Supreme the Arch be able to compete with them? Wouldn't that be a little too arrogant? Immortal Ling Mu stroked his beard and laughed. He shook his head and smiled. I knew it. Emperor Qing hasn't come out for so many years. Why would you agree to my invitation? So that's why you came. He glanced at the three children behind Emperor Qing, and his eyes were full of smiles. He was not annoyed by Emperor Qing's request. Instead, he said, it's rare that everyone is here. It's fine to let these juniors in. However, Emperor Qing, your three disciples are the youngest here. Can you let them in without worry? Of course. Immortal Ling Mu. T. Phantom Doctor. Chapter 4769. That whip was truly a celestial treasure that had been passed down since ancient times. It was not something an ordinary celestial artifact could compare to. Moreover, it was said that the 9-section red flame phoenix scale whip was also known as the God-beating whip. Even cultivators with decent cultivation would find it difficult to withstand a single lash from it. Furthermore, the whip would cause one's skin to burn, and ordinary medicine would not be able to cure it. It could be said that it was an ancient divine whip that everyone knew about. However, that whip had always been with Immortal Ling Mu. Everyone had only heard of it but had never seen it before. Immortal Ling Mu smiled and looked at Emperor Qing. Oh, you. It's rare for you to come here. So, you're here for my treasure. He chuckled and looked at Emperor Qing meaningfully. He said, that treasure is in the Mirror Flower, Water, and Moon Spirit Land. My master left it there. Even I can't take it out. If someone really does take it out, I'll give it to them. He smiled and looked at the immortal lords. Everyone, it's rare for Emperor Qing to be so interested. Even if I don't agree, it's different. I wonder if your disciples would like to go in and give it a try? It's rare to have such an opportunity. It's also their opportunity. Here, we thank Immortal Ling Mu on their behalf. Everyone stood up and bowed to him with cupped fists. All right, since that's the case, please follow me. He stood up with a smile and looked at everyone. At this moment, the Lotus Arch also stood up and followed Old Man Ling Mu with the three little fellows behind him. After walking for a while, they stopped in front of a mirror stone that had the Mirror Flower, Water, and Moon Spirit Realm engraved on it. Immortal Ling Mu looked at everyone and said, this is where the Mirror Flower, Water, and Moon Spirit Realm is. However, the strength of those who enter will be suppressed. The stronger one is, the harder it will be to move around inside. He smiled and waved his sleeves. Petals flew down and turned into rays of light that entered the arms of the juniors. A beautiful flower petal appeared on the inside of each of their arms. Once you're inside, if the petals on your arms are cut, the bleeding will disappear and you'll be brought out. Similarly, if you can't hold on any longer and want to come out, cut your skin where the petals are. As long as blood oozes out, you'll come out. Do you understand? Immortal Lingmu looked at everyone and asked. Understood. Everyone responded respectfully. There's one thing you have to remember. If you die inside, you'll really die inside. So, if you have no other choice, you have to remember what I said. The petals on your arms will be your lifeline. Immortal Lingmu said again, looking deeply at them. Yes. Everyone replied again. Immortal Lingwood flicked his sleeve, and the seemingly ordinary spirit stone mirror instantly emitted a gentle light. A vortex also appeared on the mirror. Go in. Without giving their master a chance to instruct them, Immortal Lingwood waved his sleeve, and all the juniors were swept into it. As they entered, the surface of the spirit stone mirror returned to normal. Seeing this, everyone looked at each other. There were some things they didn't have time to instruct, but now all of them had entered. When they thought of this, they felt as if there was something stuck in their hearts. It was very uncomfortable. Chapter 4770. Forget it. So what? This was also their own good fortune. They would just have to wait and see. Everyone, why don't we return to the front to drink and enjoy ourselves? Immortal Lingmu smiled as he looked at the crowd. Everyone looked at each other, and only then did they respond and walked back with him. Emperor Qing and Immortal Lingmu walked side by side in the front, while the others walked behind. Perhaps they were worried about their disciples, as they walked in a daze, as if they were thinking about something. Immortal Lingmu glanced at Emperor Qing and smiled. Emperor Qing, aren't you worried about the three of them? After all, they are so young. Even I am a little worried when I see them. It was precisely because of their young age that he saw the three children holding hands when he sent the juniors into the Mirror Flower, Water, Moon Spirit Land. Therefore, he didn't separate them and sent them directly into the Mirror Flower, Water and Moon Spirit Land. Who knew what would happen to such young children if they were separated? He and Emperor Qing had been friends for many years. Forget it, forget it. He would take it as taking care of them. Emperor Qing's lips curled up slightly when he heard that. He said unhurriedly, although the three of them are young, they are very intelligent. I am not worried. As he spoke, he turned to look at Immortal Lingmu with a smile on his face. You should worry about that whip of yours. Ha 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 ha. Immortal Lingmu laughed heartily. His eyes were full of smiles, and it was obvious that he was very happy. He said, That treasure has been with me for a long time, and there are many people who have designs on it. But how many years has it been? No one has been able to enter the Mirror Flower, Water and Moon Spiritual Land to retrieve it. As he spoke, he stroked his beard and said with a smile, If your three disciples can really take it out, then I'll give you the whip. I'll also give you a set of whip technique books that my master left behind. How about that? All right, it's a deal. Emperor Qing smiled. Just don't regret it. Sigh, I am a dignified immortal. My words carry enormous weight. Why would I regret it? As long as your three disciples can get it, I will fulfill my promise. He laughed and felt that Emperor Qing's three disciples would not be able to get the whip. Not to mention Emperor Qing's three disciples, even other disciples would not be able to get it. If that treasure could be obtained so easily, it would not have been called an ancient treasure. At this moment it would not still be with him. Therefore, he was completely at ease. He simply felt that those juniors entering were just going through the motions. After all, most of their disciples only followed their master around most of the time. When they were training on their own, they were still relatively young. Moreover, they were still in his catoptric deflection realm. Hearing this, Emperor Qing only smiled and did not say anything else. Celestial Elder Lingwood had never expected that he would miscalculate one day, at the same time, in the Mirror Flower Water Moon Spirit realm. After everyone was sent in, they scattered. Only Hao Mu Chen and Mu Yu landed alone. Chapter 4771. while the others were trying to find their senior brothers and sisters to team up to find the 9-section Flame Phoenix scale whip. Howard and the other two were already sizing up this place. Eldest senior brother, where are we going to find the whip? Ewer asked. Because on the way here, their master had told them the main purpose of bringing them here this time. Thus, they knew early on that their master had brought them here to see the world. In fact, it was also for the precious whip here. Let's look for it first. You have to be careful to protect the petal on your arm. Don't let anyone hurt it lest it gets transported out. Howard reminded them. Yes, we know. The two younger ones responded. Let's go ahead and take a look. Howard said and motioned for them to follow him. The two followed him forward while paying attention to the surrounding movements. They walked for a long distance and did not meet anyone else, so they took a rest first. Eldest senior brother, second senior brother, let's protect the petal. It's safer to make a layer of protection. While resting, Ewer took out a bandage from her space and a gold coin. Then she wrapped her arm with the bandage and put down her sleeve. Howard and Mu-chun saw this and copied her to make a simple protection. After the three of them were done, they drank some water and continued to walk forward. Roar! There's movement! Howard whispered and motioned for them to be careful. At the same time, he restrained his breath and followed the sound all the way to the back of a big tree. When he saw the scene in front of him, his eyes flashed. In front of them was a huge gray bear beast about 2 meters tall. Every time it raised its feet and stomped down, a deep bear footprint would appear on the ground. That ferocious beast had a ferocious look and sharp fangs in its open mouth. At this time, it was pouncing on the 10-year-old boy in front of it. It's that boy. Ewer blinked. She knew this person. Other than them, he was the youngest. She did not expect him to be alone. What surprised them was that although the boy was young, he was very agile. He dodged left and right to avoid the bear beast's attack. However, he was only a 10-year-old child after all. After a while, he was panting and fell to the ground after being hit by the bear's paw. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was in a very sorry state. He let out a blood-curdling scream as the bear's paw slapped out. The sharp claws also scratched his body, leaving a few marks on his body. Seeing him being beaten so miserably, Ewer couldn't help but bite her lips. Then looking towards her two brothers, she asked, "Should we help him?" Mu-chun did not speak and only frowned as he looked ahead. Howard's expression was indifferent as he said, "If he doesn't want to die, he can just cut open his arm and use the flower petals to save himself. There's no need for us to save him. If we save him, he will become our opponent in the fight for the 9-section Red Flame Phoenix scale whip. At that time, should we show mercy to him?" Hearing what was said, Ewer opened her mouth but was unable to refute. That was because she knew that her brother was telling the truth. Furthermore, her brother's silence most likely meant that he agreed with her brother's actions. Especially since her master had said that if the three of them were to obtain the whip would be given to her. Thinking of this, her heart became firm. Chapter 47-72. 3 people were looking from one side, and saw that little boy was persistently holding on. He was trying to escape from the attack of that huge bear, but that huge bear also didn't seem to want to give up on the prey that was about to reach its hands, so it ferociously attacked. Not long after, that little boy was riddled with scars and was gasping for breath. Roar! A beast roar resounded, and that huge bear pounced forward. Its mouth was wide open, and its sharp teeth were about to bite the neck of that little boy. Perhaps because he had nowhere to escape, and seeing that huge bear was about to bite him, that little boy was so scared that his complexion turned pale. Then he clenched his teeth and raised his hand to cut the flower petal on his arm. Along with the blood seeping out, that flower petal instantly changed into a ray of light and enveloped that little boy. With the flash of light, at the same time that huge bear pounced forward, that little boy also disappeared. Seeing this scene, Ewer couldn't help but lightly exhaled, and her anxious heart finally relaxed. Roar! That huge bear stretched out its sharp claws and scratched on the ground, and at the same time, it also left behind several deep claw marks on the ground. After that it looked all around, it raised its head and roared twice, then using both its hands and feet, it ran forward. Seeing that huge bear had left, 3 people who were hiding not far away looked at each other, then continued to walk forward. Just at this time, a voice came from behind them. 3 people, please wait. Hearing this voice, 3 people stopped their footsteps, then turning their head, they vigilantly took a glance. They saw that the people who had arrived were 1 male and 1 female. Their ages were around 20 years old. The male wore blue-colored embroidered gown, and the female wore white-colored gown. Both of their appearances were very outstanding. They also remembered these 2 people. They were the disciples of that purple-robed male who had mentioned about their mother. Previously during the banquet, I didn't have the opportunity to greet 3 people, but I didn't expect to meet 3 people here. I am Li Ziming, and this is my junior sister Nangong Yen. We are the disciples of Zi Nan, immortal monarch. That male said with gentle expression, then looking at 3 people with smiling gaze, he said, "This place is extremely dangerous, and there are numerous ferocious beasts. It is rare for us to encounter such a place. How about we travel together?" At this time, before 3 people could open their mouth, the female beside said, "This is also the first time we came here. Just now, we heard the sound of bear beast here. Did it injure 3 of you?" "No." He then looked at the man and said, "The 3 of us are still young. If we travel with you, we'll only cause you trouble. So, we don't need to travel with you." With such a rejection, most people would naturally leave after hearing it. Unexpectedly, the man and woman looked at each other and smiled. "It's no trouble. We're all immortal disciples and you're still young. We have to take care of you." Without waiting for them to refuse again, the man smiled and said, "Could it be that the 3 of you are looking down on the 2 of us? Is that why you don't want to travel with us?" Hearing these words, Yu who was at one side smiled and said, "Eldest senior brother, then let young Master Li and Miss Nangong travel with us. That way I'll have company." Hearing this, Hao glanced at her and saw her smiling eyes. Her small face was full of smiles. However, when those who were familiar with her saw her smile, their hearts skipped a beat. Unconsciously, the corners of their lips curled up slightly, and their expressions softened a little. Chapter 47-73. Traveling together is not troublesome or not. Zhao Ziming smiled, then looking towards Yu, he said, "Yunqi, how about we call you by your name? If you don't mind, you can call me Big Brother Li, no need to call me young master or miss." Hearing this, Yu looked at him with a smile. Her beautiful eyes were pure, and her little face was full of seriousness. "My master said Big Brother can't be casually called." Hearing this, Zhao Ziming was startled, then said with a smile, "Then Big Brother can't be casually called, how about calling us senior brothers and sisters?" Who would have thought that just after he said this, he saw the little girl shook her head again. "No," Master said, "he only accepted us 3, so I can't call others senior brothers and sisters." Looking at the little girl's serious expression of rejection once again, the smiles on the 2 men's faces became slightly stiff. When traveling outside, when the children of aristocratic families met, some of them would address each other as brothers, senior brother, or junior sister. Who would take it so seriously? But this little girl said with a serious face, and her pair of beautiful eyes were full of pure and innocent color. She looked like a well-protected little girl who didn't understand the affairs of the world, as pure as a piece of white paper. They, who were 20-year-old adults, were talking to a 5 or 6-year-old child about worldly affairs and so on. It was simply playing the lute to a cow. Then, how about we call each other by name? The man smiled embarrassedly, and after a long time, he choked out such a sentence. If people of similar age called each other by name, then it was nothing, but this little girl who was 10 years older than them directly called them by name. This seemed somewhat, can I? Is this not suitable? Master didn't say. Yu lightly bit her lips, blinked her beautiful eyes, and had a hesitant expression. Yes, no problem, we are all cultivators, so we don't care about this small matter. The man said with a stiff smile. The woman beside him also showed a touch of unnatural smile and said, How about you call each other by the name of just now? Calling me Miss Nangong is also fine, there is no harm. Okay, then we will call you young Master Zhao and Miss Nangong, Yu said with a beaming smile. Originally, she wanted to get closer to them, but who would have thought, after talking for a long time, she came back. The two of them couldn't help but look at each other with a hint of helplessness in their eyes. If not for the fact that they were Emperor Qing's disciples, why would the two of them lower themselves to befriend them? Unfortunately, these three children were still so young. Talking to them for a while was more tiring than fighting with the ferocious beast. Right, did your master ever mention this 9-section flame phoenix scale whip to you? That male asked while looking at the three of them. Mu Chen glanced at them. Yes. Hearing this, the two of them couldn't help but feel moved. They looked at each other and asked with a trace of joy, What did he tell you? Did they say how to find the whip? Our master said that it's an ancient treasure and there's only one of it in the world. No one else said anything about it. Mu Chen knew that they wanted to know, but why would he tell them? Chapter 47-74. Hearing these words, the three of them looked at him, but didn't say anything. They just let him lead the way and walked forward together. On the way, Hao and Mu Chen didn't say anything. Their little faces were also indifferent and grim. It seemed that they weren't easy to get along with. Especially when the two of them tried to talk to them several times, Hao and Mu Chen only replied with 1 or 2 simple sentences. Therefore, along the way, Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yuan more or less figured out the temperament of these three. Therefore, Nangong Yuan also diverted the topic to Cloud 7, who had been smiling innocently, while Zhao Ziming occasionally talked to Hao and Mu Chen, intending to divert their attention so that Nangong Yuan, who was 2 steps behind them, would have the opportunity to obtain some information. I heard that Cyan Emperor also had a female disciple in the past, and her name also seemed to be called Yunqi. If he was the one who gave your name, then why would he give you the name Yunqi? Nangong Yuan looked towards Yu and asked. Hearing this, Yu smiled and said, Yes, we had a senior sister called Yunqi. But she is no longer here. Our master said that he would give me the name Yunqi. This way, she will always be with us. So it was like this. Then Yunqi, what is your original name? Nangong Yuan asked again. She was actually very curious about their identity and origin. As long as she asked for their names, she would let people investigate and naturally know which family they came from. At the front, Hao and Mu Chen were listening to Zhao Ziming's words while paying attention to Yu's movements. When they heard Nangong Yuan asking about their origin, both of them pursed their lips, but their expression didn't change, because they believed that their younger sister was more than enough to deal with Nangong Yuan. Our master didn't allow us to say our original name. Yu shook her head and said in a crisp voice, Master said that the name is only a code name. After becoming his disciple, you only need to remember that you are his disciple. If others ask, you can't say your original name. The more this was the case, the more curious they were. Just that, they thought that these 3 children were still young, so it shouldn't be difficult to get some information from them. But who would have thought that even though they said their names, they only said some useless information. Moreover, all the things they didn't say were under the name of their master, which made them feel helpless. Be careful! Suddenly, Hao shouted in a low voice, then quickly turned around and pulled Yu and Mu Chen, and simultaneously retreated several meters away. Almost at the same time, Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yuan's hair stood on end, and they quickly dodged. Just as they dodged, a figure as fast as light instantly collided with their previous position, causing a cloud of dust to rise. Hiss! It's a mutant diamond ape. As Zhao Ziming spoke, His gaze landed on Hao, who was holding the two children. Just now, his reaction was extremely fast. At that moment, even he didn't sense the danger, but he reacted one step ahead of him. Moreover, he immediately pulled his junior brother and junior sister apart. At this moment, this child named Yun Chun had shown a part of him that allowed him to have a new understanding of him. Monkey. Yu opened her eyes wide, looking at that very big monkey. She curiously looked it up and down, and felt that it was different from ordinary monkey. Chapter 4775. Nangong Yuyen's beautiful face had a trace of graveness as she said, "Look at its eyes are red, so it is a variant ape. This kind of ape is originally a strength-type ape. In addition to its mutation, it is a combination of speed and strength, making its fighting strength extraordinary. Moreover, the most important point is that this kind of ape is a social species. I am afraid there is more than one of them." Hiss! Roar! They heard that diamond ape scuttling out from its mouth, then suddenly howled. That sound was extremely loud and clear, immediately spreading through the air and reverberating. "Not good. We have to leave quickly." Zhao Ziming's complexion greatly changed, and he immediately said, "Quickly leave. It is calling out to other apes." Just as his voice fell, he immediately took advantage of the fact that the variant diamond ape had not yet reacted to attack them. But to their surprise, just as they were about to leave, they heard a cry of alarm. "Quickly leave, quickly leave. Eldest senior brother, second senior brother, I am so scared. Master said that if there is danger, we have to quickly escape." Yu cried out in alarm, and almost as soon as her panicked voice fell, they saw her pulling her two senior brothers and rushing forward. That speed was so fast that they were unable to regain their senses for quite a while. Because of the speed of these three people, both of them were stunned, so when they came back to their senses and wanted to call out to them, that variant diamond ape had already scuttled out and waved a fist towards them. "Xiao! Senior brother, be careful!" Nangong Yuyen cried out in alarm. She saw that the fist of that huge ape was carrying a powerful wind as it waved towards Zhao Ziming. Its strength was so great that it made people tremble with fear. At that moment, Zhao Ziming also came back to his senses, and he quickly dodged, but he could still feel the terrifying strength of that fist as it passed by his head. Because they were facing the speed and strength of this diamond ape, moreover they were also worried that a group of apes would come over and besiege them, so they didn't dare to continue fighting, and only wanted to look for an opportunity to escape. However, just as the two of them avoided the mutant diamond ape and chased after the three children, they heard a cry of surprise. Not long after, they saw the three children running back like the wind. "Ah! Quickly run! A lot of monkeys are chasing after us!" Yu shouted, and at this time her little short legs were running very fast. Dust rolled up under her feet, and on her left and right were her two brothers. It was not that they didn't want to fight, but the speed of this group of monkeys, no, this group of apes was too fast. Moreover, there was a large group besieging them. Their fists smashed towards them, and they could only watch helplessly as that huge ape. That kind of terrifying fighting strength, they didn't dare to fight. Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yuyen, who were preparing to flee in their direction, saw the group of howling giant apes chasing after the three children, and immediately turned pale with fright. "See, Yu Yuyen said, you of them. Use, quickly run, 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 run. He said you of them, of use, his, he use, he of, he, y3, they were in. Ya of course, and them, of them of course, they of them, them, of them, of them, of them, of them, of them, am. And Chapter 4776. You wait for us! Zhao Ziming shouted, then gritting his teeth, he ran with all his might. Nangong Yuyen, who was a few steps behind, because she was not lightly frightened by those huge apes, she also used 100% of her speed to run for her life. The few of them ran all the way into the depths of the forest. The giant apes chased them for a long distance. Then, for some unknown reason, they gradually came to a stop. They only howled in the same place, but no longer chased after them. Trio ran while looking back, and only after they no longer saw those huge apes, they heavily exhaled and stopped to rest. When Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yuyan arrived at their location, they only saw 3 of them holding their knees and half bending their waist while gasping for breath. Because they had run for quite a long distance, 3 of them were sweating a lot, and their little face was also red because of the heat. How did you run so fast? Zhao Ziming slightly gasped for breath, and with one hand on his waist, he came to their side and asked. Nangong Yuyan was so tired that she didn't even want to speak, and directly sat down under a tree at the side. While gasping for breath, she took out a water to drink. Master said, even if our cultivation isn't high enough, but our ability to escape must be practiced to high level, so we are not good at other things, but our ability to escape is absolutely first-rate. Er's little face was red, and blinking her pair of beautiful eyes, she seriously lied. Not only their ability to escape was first-rate, they also had the ability to defend themselves, otherwise their master wouldn't have let them come here. Not to mention, they were already accustomed to those ferocious beasts and so on. If they were not worried about releasing the ancient aura within their body, then as long as they called out their contract beasts, or released the ancient aura within their body, those huge apes naturally wouldn't dare to chase them again. But they also remembered the words of their master, unless it was absolutely necessary, they couldn't call out their contract beasts, so as to avoid some people with ulterior motives to investigate their origin. Hearing her words, both of them glared at the 3 of them, and for a long time they were speechless. How could their ability to escape be first-rate? Even the 2 of them couldn't catch up to their speed, which showed that they were extraordinary. However, what made them stunned and incredulous was that they were clearly so young, so how did they train to escape? Nangong Yuyan looked at the 3 of them and said, I didn't expect that you would be able to cultivate such a set of footwork in just a year or so of time. You are truly heavenly and intelligent, and your innate talent is outstanding. No wonder Emperor Qing accepted you as his disciples. The 2 of you, there are many dangers in here, and there are many ferocious beasts. I think it's better if we split up to avoid attracting the attention of the ferocious beasts. Howard looked at the 2 of them and didn't wait for them to say anything. He cupped his hands and said, Please. She then turned to Mu Chen and Yu. Come with me. All right. The 2 of them replied. Yu looked towards both of them, then beaming with smiles, she waved her hand and said, Then we will leave first, take care of yourselves. Hey you guys! Zhao Ziming had just opened his mouth when he saw that the 3 of them had already rushed into the forest. He couldn't help but open his mouth, but couldn't say anything. Chapter 47-77. Zhao Ziming smiled bitterly. Not only are they not simple, but they're also very smart. The 3 of them may look young, but their reactions can't lie. Even if they didn't show anything special, just based on their previous moves and Yun Chen's reaction when he sensed the danger before me, I can tell that they aren't incompetent people. As he spoke, he sighed softly and said, How can a disciple of Emperor Qing be an ordinary person? We thought they were too young, so our first impression was the strongest. Senior brother, I think we should follow them. Maybe they'll find the 9-section Red Flames Phoenix scale whip first. Nangong Yuyan said thoughtfully. She looked at him and said, I think they didn't tell us the truth. Since Emperor Qing brought them here, it's impossible that he didn't mention it to them. And let's follow them, Zhao Ziming said. He didn't have time to rest and immediately chased after them with her. Some of the elder immortal's disciples in other places were injured, while others were teleported out. Some of them were in groups, while others were searching for the 9-jointed Flame Phoenix scale whip alone. There were also some who were being chased by fierce beasts as they fled in all directions. Yu followed her 2 brothers. Occasionally, when she saw some spiritual herbs, she couldn't help but squat down and dig for them. Mu Chen stood guard beside Yu while she was digging for spiritual herbs. When he noticed the two people secretly following them, he couldn't help but look at their eldest brother. Eldest senior brother, they've been following us. Hao glanced at them and said, find a chance to shake them off. I'm done digging. Eldest senior brother, second senior brother, let's go, Yu said with a smile. Thus, the three of them looked at each other and walked at a leisurely pace. Gradually, they picked up their pace and walked faster and faster, preparing to shake off the two people behind them. At this time, just as the two of them were about to chase after them, the three men who were walking together saw them and called out, Brother Zhao, Miss Nangong. Helpless, the two of them could only stop and look at the three people who were walking quickly towards them. While Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yan were being held back, Hao and the other two had already sped up their pace and went deeper. At the same time, the masters in the Mirror Flower Water Moon Spirit Realm were drinking wine and chatting in front. Although everyone was chatting casually, they were all worried about their own disciples. They wanted to know if they had gained anything from the inside. However, even if they wanted to, they were powerless to help. They could only wait here. On the other hand, the few disciples who were injured and came out first were sitting quietly behind their master with their heads lowered. They seemed to be a little ashamed and self-blaming. They were ashamed that they had exited the Mirror's Flower, Water, and Moon Spirit Realm so quickly. They blamed themselves for not being able to gain face for their master, and instead being eliminated so early. However, there was one thing that was clear. The injuries they had suffered inside had disappeared without a trace after they exited the Mirror Flower, Water, and Moon Spirit Realm. It was as if what they had experienced inside was nothing more than an illusion. Chapter 47-78. Emperor Qin, you don't seem to be worried about your three disciples? Immortal Lord Zinan, who was dressed in a purple brocade robe, played with his wine cup as he looked at the leisurely Emperor Qin. Hearing his words, the others who were talking paused for a moment and looked at Emperor Qin with a strange light in their eyes. From the moment they entered until now, 5 disciples had come out. However, the 3 young disciples of Emperor Qin had not been sent out yet. This was somewhat out of everyone's expectations. Could it be that the 3 children had experienced hundreds of battles at such a young age? Did they have absolute strength to deal with everything inside? In an instant, everyone's thoughts were floating as they guessed. The Lotus Emperor took a sip of the spirit wine and smiled. What's there to be worried about? He said unhurriedly. If they can't handle it, they will naturally come out. However, since my 3 disciples have already entered, they will definitely not return empty-handed. As he spoke, he smiled and looked at Immortal Lingmu beside him. With a flip of his hand, he took out a luminous pearl that was difficult to hold in his palm and said, Immortal Lingmu, I obtained this luminous pearl a few years ago. I didn't bring a gift this time, so take this pearl as a gift for you. Immortal Lord Lingmu laughed when he heard that. He took the luminous pearl with both hands and said, Emperor Qin, you are really confident. Are you really that confident that your 3 disciples will be able to obtain the treasure in the Mirror Flower, Water, and Moon Spirit Land? They had known each other for many years and naturally knew why Emperor Qin took out this pearl. However, Immortal Lord Lingmu still did not believe it and found it funny. They were merely 3 children who had only been by his side for a year. How could they obtain the ancient divine whip from there? Just keep it. Emperor Qin smiled and did not say anything else. Alright, it is rare to see a luminous pearl this big. Furthermore, its luster is so beautiful. It is indeed a rare treasure. Since it is a gift from Emperor Qin, I will shamelessly accept it. He stroked his beard and said with a smile as he called over an immortal servant to keep the luminous pearl. Immortal Lord Lingmu looked at the crowd and smiled. I believe everyone is curious about their encounters and adaptability inside. Since that is the case, let us watch from here. It's also good to see the performance of the disciples. As he spoke, He took out a mirror from his sleeve and threw it into the middle of the banquet. The mirror flashed with light and stopped in midair between them. The mirror clearly reflected the scenery of the Mirror Flower Water Moon Spirit Land. It just so happened that the image in the mirror was the image of Emperor Qing's 3 disciples. In the image, the 3 of them were sitting under a tree, resting, drinking water, and talking. However, at this moment, a giant python came from not far away, hissing. Even when they heard it from outside, they couldn't help but feel their hearts skip a beat. However, the 3 children didn't seem to notice it. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but look at Emperor Qing. However, he wasn't worried at all. He just sat there with a lazy and leisurely expression. As he gently swirled the wine cup in his hand and tasted the spirit wine in the cup, he looked at the scene in the mirror as if he was watching a show as an outsider. Chapter 4779. Emperor Qing swirled the wine in his cup and said with a smile, "This emperor heard that Nan, immortal monarch, had obtained a purple sun gold silk soft armor. Why don't we make a bet? Let's see if this huge python ate my 3 disciples? Or if my disciples killed this huge python." Hearing this, Nan, immortal monarch's eyes flickered and said, "Emperor Qing wants my purple sun gold silk soft armor? I wonder what item Emperor Qing will bet if I use that purple sun gold silk soft armor as a bet?" Emperor Qing smiled and said, "This emperor has too many treasures. I wonder which one immortal monarch has taken a fancy to?" Haha, since Emperor Qing has spoken, then how about we use Emperor Qing's sky-connecting immortal seal as a bet? Nan, immortal monarch, looked at Emperor Qing and said, "Sure." The Azure Tharch smiled and agreed. Just when his voice fell, that huge python also instantly scuttled forward, opened its huge snake mouth, and bit towards you. Everyone present could not help but hold their breaths when they saw this scene. However, unexpectedly, that little girl who was smiling and chatting with her 2 senior brothers just a moment ago rolled on the ground and pulled out a dagger from her boot. Almost reflexively, she attacked the python's tail that was swinging towards her. Her speed was fast and her attack was fierce. Everyone present could not help but be startled. The moment the dagger attacked, that little girl's body actually emitted a fierce killing intent. The aura around her body also changed in an instant. Just a moment ago, she still had an innocent and harmless smile, but in the next moment, she revealed a decisive and ruthless killing intent. This change happened in an instant. Everyone who saw it could not help but be shocked. Moreover, not only did the little girl's reaction was fast, even the 2 little boys' reaction was extremely fast. They quickly retreated when that huge python rushed forward. However, when they saw the little girl dealing with that huge python, they did not go forward to help. Instead, they stood at the side and watched. When Immortal Ling Mu saw this scene, his hand that was stroking his beard could not help but pause. A trace of surprise also appeared on his face. Obviously, they didn't expect that the little girl would dare to deal with the giant python alone. Moreover, her 2 senior brothers didn't even come forward to help. Emperor Qing only watched quietly. However, his eyes were filled with gentleness and pride. This was his disciple. Even though he was still young, he had extraordinary courage and outstanding skills. Looking at the excitement in the little girl's eyes, he reckoned that she wanted to catch the python's gallbladder to use as medicine. Thinking of this, he secretly shook his head. He felt a little helpless but also a little doting. Nan, immortal monarch, was probably the only one with an ugly expression. Compared to the shock and surprise on the faces of others, Nan, immortal monarch's face was rather dark. After all, he was someone with such a high level of cultivation. He was naturally able to tell whether someone was capable or not. The little girl was still young, but the strength she used when she attacked with the dagger, as well as the fierce attack and extremely fast speed, were enough to tell him that he had misjudged her. Especially since this little girl was holding a dagger and had used a fatal move as soon as she made her move. It wasn't some fancy move. Seeing her turn around and leap forward to stab at the python's vital point, his heart couldn't help but tighten. It looked like he would have to hand over his purple sun gold soft armor. Chapter 4780. Seeing this, he could not help but rejoice. He knew that the little girl was only 5 or 6 years old. How could she possibly defeat the python? Seeing the little girl being wrapped up by the python's tail, he could not help but glance at Qing-Yi. Perhaps not only could he keep his purple sun gold silk soft armor, but he could also obtain Emperor Qing's treasure. That would be great news. Thinking of this, the corners of his mouth curled up imperceptibly. However, his face was filled with worry. He said, "Sigh, Emperor Qing, look. The little girl has been wrapped up by the python's tail. You should know that the python's strength is not light. Even an adult's bones would be crushed by it, let alone a child." Although he said that, he was not worried at all. As long as the little girl could not take it, she would be sent out. Of course, if she was sent out, he would win the bet with Emperor Qing. However, Emperor Qing's expression did not change. He only glanced at him indifferently before looking away. His gaze seemed to be saying that he could not be bothered to talk to him. Seeing this, he could not help but feel embarrassed, but he did not dare to show it. "Haha, Zenan Immortal Master, just watch. It's not over yet." Immortal Ling Mu stroked his beard and smiled. He had a whole new level of respect for Emperor Qing's 3 disciples. Furthermore, up until now, the 2 boys had only been watching and had not approached. If the little girl really could not handle it, the 2 of them would naturally step forward to help her. Why would they stand quietly by the side and do nothing? Just as he finished speaking, he heard a surprised voice. "Look!" An immortal master looked at the scene in the mirror. He saw that the python's tail that was tightly wrapped around the little girl had suddenly loosened. The python's body twitched. The little girl took this opportunity to stab the python's weak point with her dagger. The dagger in her hand pierced deeply into the python's weak point. When the dagger was pulled out, a pillar of blood spurted out. Hiss! The python hissed. It wanted to turn around and bite her, but it seemed to be powerless. The python's head fell to the ground with a thump. At this moment, the little girl hurriedly stabbed the python again. After confirming that the python was dead, she smiled at her 2 senior brothers. Looking at the smile on the little girl's face, everyone's face was filled with shock. That was a giant python at the level of a holy beast. Even if they were here watching, they still couldn't figure out how she killed that giant python. The Zenan Immortal Lord's expression was somewhat unsightly. He pursed his lips and glanced at the Azure Emperor. Then, he said with a fake smile, "The Azure Emperor's disciple is indeed different from the rest. He is so decisive and skilled at killing at such a young age. Immortal Monarch Zenan, you praise me too much. These 3 disciples of this emperor are only slightly more talented than others. They are able to understand everything with just a hint." The Azure Emperor smiled gently. He swirled his wine cup gently and took a sip of wine. When the surrounding people saw this, they all looked at each other and then smiled to smooth things over. They said, "I wonder how the other disciples are doing?" Chapter 4781. Inside Mirrored Flower Water Moon Spirit Realm, Hao and Mu Chen walked over after seeing Yer kill that huge python. Originally they wanted to help, but Yer said she could do it, and also told them to stay away, so they just watched from the side. They didn't expect that she was really able to kill that huge python. Although she used some medicine to deal with that python, but no matter what, she was the one who killed it. "Eldest senior brother, second senior brother, wait for me. I want to take out this snake's gallbladder and use it as medicine," Yer said without raising her head. While holding a dagger, she cut open that huge python's body. Originally it was hard for a person to hold the snake's body, but it was cut open by this little girl just like that. The bloody scene made people feel disgusted, but this little girl nevertheless had a serious expression. After finding the snake's gallbladder, she carefully took it out, then took out a bottle from her space, and put that snake's gallbladder inside the bottle, then put it away. Everyone in the banquet saw the scene of that little girl cutting open the snake's body, taking out the snake's gallbladder and digging out the beast's core, and couldn't help but somewhat shudder. That skillful movement, as if she had already done this kind of thing no less than 100 times, really made them shocked. Immortal Ling Mu took a deep breath, and seeing that bloody scene, he waved his hand and changed the scene. At this time, an immortal elder asked, "Qing Emperor, although your disciples are young, but their technique is extremely skillful, I wonder how Qing Emperor usually train them? How can you teach them such skillful technique at such a young age?" The Qing Emperor looked at the switched image, and withdrew his gaze in boredom. Only then did he answer the immortal elder's question. "Not long ago I let them train outside alone for a month. My eldest disciple brought back 300 crystal cores of ferocious beasts. Among them, there were many ferocious beasts at the peak of the holy beast level." As he spoke, his voice paused and he took a sip of wine. Under their shocked gazes, he continued, "As for the 2 little ones, they are also separated. However, they each brought back 100 crystal cores for me. Among them, there are naturally many crystal cores of saint beasts. So, it's just a python. Each of my 3 disciples is capable enough to deal with it." "So you clearly knew that your little disciple would definitely kill that huge python, but you still enticed me to make a bet?" Nan Immortal Elder looked at him with unsightly expression, feeling that he was cheated. "Haha," Qing Emperor laughed, and his laughter contained indifference and coldness. "If it wasn't for Nan Immortal Elder's greed, why would you make a bet with this emperor? Moreover, why didn't I look for the others but you?" Hearing this, Nan Immortal Monarch felt a stifling anger in his heart. He wanted to vent it but could not. In the end, he could only say in an embarrassed and angry voice, "Emperor Qing is truly skilled." "You flatter me," the Lotus Emperor replied casually. "Nan Immortal Elder, aren't they your 2 disciples?" asked an Immortal Elder sitting to the side, trying to change the topic, so as to prevent the situation from escalating. "And my 2 disciples," another Immortal Elder smiled, his gaze also landing on the scene in the mirror. "Who would have thought that my eldest disciple would end up together with your 2 disciples?" Another Immortal Monarch smiled. Chapter 4782. As it turned out, they had been ambushed by 2 huge bears after traveling together for some distance. Originally, they had worked together to fend them off, but the commotion from the battle had attracted a group of mutated Vajra apes. The apes did not approach them. Instead, they roared from the side as if they were waiting for an opportunity to attack. In such a situation, when the situation was getting more and more dangerous and their fighting strength was gradually decreasing, the 2 disciples of Nan Immortal Monarch actually took advantage of the other 3's carelessness to push them out to block the 2 ferocious bear beasts, while the 2 disciples took advantage of the opportunity to quickly escape. The expressions of the 3 disciples' masters became very ugly when they saw this. Their faces that had been smiling earlier had turned cold in an instant. They spoke with a mocking tone. Nan Immortal Monarch has truly taught a good disciple. For a cultivator to possess such treacherous thoughts and methods, it can be seen that they will not be able to go far on the path of immortality in the future. The other elder sighed and shook his head. "Come to think of it, this old man is ashamed. I only taught them how to cultivate, and warned them to be humble and courteous when dealing with people, and to not have the heart to harm others. Yet I didn't teach them that the ways of the world are sinister, and that they must always be vigilant. I'm ashamed. Nan Immortal Monarch's face alternated between green and red when he heard their words. He felt both angry and ashamed. The 2 disciples were so useless that they actually did such a thing in there, making him unable to raise his head in front of everyone. He understood the 2 people's sarcastic words, but he couldn't even open his mouth to refute. After this matter, he was afraid that in the future, the eyes of others would be different. In the end, he took a deep breath and suppressed the shame and anger in his heart. He stood up and cupped his hands towards the two people. He said apologetically, "It's my fault for not disciplining them properly. That's why the two of them did such a thing. I'm really ashamed of myself. I apologize to the two of you. When we return, I'll definitely punish the two of them severely." The two of them did not pursue the matter further when they saw him apologizing. Their expressions softened as they said, "As immortals, our cultivation is secondary. Temperament is the most important thing. Even though Nan Immortal Lord's two disciples are outstanding, if their temperament is impure, they will only bring trouble to themselves in the future, let alone go far on the path to immortality. Since Nan Immortal Lord has apologized on their behalf, we won't pursue the matter any further. Let's leave it to them to decide on their own." Nan Immortal Monarch only revealed an unnatural smile. He bowed towards them again before sitting down. The others watched with various expressions, but they did not say anything. They only watched the scene in the mirror. In the end, the three people who were pushed out were heavily injured by the bear. They had no choice but to cut open the flower petals and teleport out of the spirit land to save themselves. Everyone had different thoughts when they saw this scene. They looked at each other, and not long after, they saw the three people walking back from nowhere. "Master! Master!" The three of them clasped their hands and bowed. Their faces were still filled with anger as they looked at Nan Immortal Monarch. "All right, we all know. Sit down and rest." Their master gestured for them to sit behind him. They could only sit behind their master when they saw this. After they sat down, their junior brothers began to tell them what had happened earlier. Chapter 4783. Time seemed to pass very quickly in the mirror. After day it was night, and after night it was day again. The people at the banquet outside kept watching while drinking and chatting, but time passed very slowly. However, as time passed, more and more disciples were sent out. When it was evening, there were only 3 disciples of the Azure Emperor and 2 disciples of the Nan Immortal Monarch left. As for the remaining 5 people, some people felt that it was inconceivable, while others felt that it was natural. Those disciples were even more shocked and surprised after seeing the performance of Emperor Qing's 3 disciples. Most of them were curious and wanted to befriend them. However, they also knew that not to mention their mysterious origins, just the fact that they were Emperor Qing's disciples already made them superior to them. Coupled with the age gap, they could only think about befriending them. Inside the Mirror Flower Water Moonland, the surroundings were pitch black as night fell. Hao and the other 2 lit a small fire and roasted the beast meat they hunted. Smelling the fragrance of the meat, Yu swallowed her saliva greedily. "Eldest senior brother, is it done? Can we eat it?" Hao looked at her and smiled. "Yes, it's done. I'll cut a piece for you." He cut a piece and wrapped it in a large leaf and handed it to her. "Be careful, it's hot." "Yes, yes." Yu happily took it and blew on it. She took a small bite, but it was so hot that she gasped. "Eat slowly, it's very hot," Mu Chen said and took the piece of meat from her. He used a small knife to cut it into small pieces and handed it to her. "Eat it." "Hee, thank you, second senior brother." She smiled and looked at her 2 brothers who doted on her. One was roasting meat for her, and the other was cutting meat for her. She was very happy. Both of her brothers were very good to her. She also wanted to be very good to them. In the future, she would not let anyone bully them. The 3 ate in the dark, and after sprinkling some medicine around, they rested around the fire until the next morning. They set off again and arrived at the final destination of this trip. It was a mountain peak with flowing water in the depth. A waterfall flowed down from above, splashing water everywhere. In this place, there were no ferocious beasts around. Only the sound of the waterfall hitting the rocks below could be heard. "How come there is nothing here?" Yu looked all around and again looked towards her 2 brothers. "Let's look for it. It should be around here." As Hao spoke, he released his divine sense to search the surroundings. Unexpectedly, before he could find the 9-section flame phoenix scale whip, he instead discovered the two people that were concealed in the shadows. After Hao noticed them, he paused for a moment. After thinking for a while, he said, "Since the two of you are here, why don't you come out and meet me?" Hearing this, Mu Chun and Mu Miwa looked at each other and followed their brother's gaze. They saw two figures slowly walking out of the forest, not far away. "Haha, what a coincidence! I didn't expect to meet you here." Zhao Ziming smiled and cupped his hands at them. He looked at the three of them meaningfully and said, "To be able to make it this far, you guys are really not simple." Chapter 4784. They saw a Luan Feng emitting fiery red flames let out a cry and circled in the sky. After chirping twice at them, it stopped on a rock above the waterfall and looked down at them from above. Seeing the Luan Feng, Hao Mu Chun and Mu Yu's eyes lit up. Their master had told them that the ancient phoenix scale whip was transformed from this Luan Feng. It was said that this Luan Feng had a trace of the phoenix's bloodline. If they could subdue it, they could transform it into the ancient phoenix scale whip and use it for themselves. That's a Luan Feng? Its aura seems to be. As Zhao Ziming spoke, he looked thoughtfully at the Luan Feng. It was unknown what he was thinking. So beautiful. I didn't think there would be such a divine bird here. Nangong Yuyan couldn't help but say. As a woman, she naturally liked beautiful things. Compared to the astonishment of the two, Hao and the other two were very calm. After the three of them looked at each other, they nodded imperceptibly. Hao opened his mouth and said, "There are only 5 of us left. Instead of fighting for the phoenix scale whip in the end, why don't we decide the victor first? What do you think?" Hearing this, the two's eyes flashed. They looked at the three and thought for a moment. If they decided the victor first, they wouldn't have to worry about the three's tricks when it came to fighting for the phoenix scale whip. They could focus on fighting for the phoenix scale whip. Not to mention, even if the three's skills were good, they were still a bit lacking compared to the two of them. 2 against 3, their chances of winning were still very high. Thinking of this, the two looked at each other and imperceptibly nodded. "That's fine." With that, Zhao Ziming looked at the three and said, "If it's 1-on-1, we'll be suspected of bullying the weak. Even if we win, it won't be honorable. How about 2 against 3? The 3 of you can come at me together." Although his words were pleasant to hear, if the 3 of them attacked together, their battle strength would increase even more. They thought that the 3 children were too young to know this, but they didn't know that the people outside the mirror saw their words and actions. Hao and the other 2 were even more well aware. However, since they were confident, they did not refuse. After all, they only wanted to send them out of the spirit realm as soon as possible so that they could seize the whip. Thus, they allowed them to make such a decision. "All right," Hao replied. He unsheathed his sword and said, "Let's fight here." "All right." Zhao Ziming and the other 2 nodded and walked forward. Holding their swords in their hands, they cupped their fists and bowed, "Then we'll have to offend you." As soon as they finished speaking, the 2 didn't hesitate and immediately drew their swords and attacked the 3 of them. Hao Mu Chun and Ur other than Ur who was holding a dagger in her hand, Hao and Mu Chun were holding a sword in their hand. With a casual wave of the sword in their hand, swift and fierce sword aura streaked across the blade of the sword, shooting towards the 2 people in front of them. The 3 of them had undergone strict training, and their skills were far superior to those of their age. Moreover, they had outstanding talents, and their attainments in swordsmanship were beyond the reach of many people. Chapter 4785. As soon as Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yuan exchanged blows with them, they immediately realized that their outstanding skills and extremely fast movement skills were out of their expectation, so for a moment, they were somewhat strenuous to deal with them. But at this time, they unexpectedly heard a voice full of laughter. "I also want to help," Ur said with a beaming smile. Just when her voice fell, her small figure as if a ghost rushed out. The dagger in her hand didn't attack other places, but specifically aimed at the arms of these two boys, wanting to cut open the transfer flower petal on their arms. Originally, Zhao Ziming and Nangong Yuyan felt that these two boys were somewhat difficult to deal with, but when they saw that little girl actually held a dagger and aimed at the inner part of their arms, they were both anxious and alarmed. On one side, they quickly dodged, and on the other, they blocked the fierce attacks of these two boys. Under the joint attack of these three boys, after fighting for a while, these two boys were forced to retreat little by little. Xiao! Clang! Xiao xiao! Hiss! Nangong Yuyan's arm was cut by Yuer merely, it wasn't cut on the inner part of her arm. At the same time, she sucked in a mouthful of cold air, and seeing the blood seeping out of her arm, a touch of anger flashed through her eyes, and she glared at Yuer. "Senior brother, I will send this little girl out first," Nangong Yuyan said while gritting her teeth, letting him support himself. Turning around, she waved her sword towards the innocent and ignorant Yuer, and the place where the sharp sword in her hand was aimed was Yuer's arm. Seeing Nangong Yuyan waving her sword to attack her, Yuer was slightly surprised, and blinking her beautiful big eyes, she quickly retreated, and said in her soft voice with some seriousness and curiosity, "Miss Nangong, do you like to pick soft persimmons to pinch? But I am not a soft persimmon." Saying this, her eyes curved, and she looked at Nangong Yuyan with a beaming smile. "My master said that I am very powerful and will be even more powerful in the future." While speaking, the aura of her whole body changed, and she fiercely leaned forward, changing from defense to offense. Her every move was swift and fierce, and the dagger in her hand was aimed at the fatal point of the human body, causing the complexion of Nangong Yuyan to greatly change, and she became flustered. "Damn it!" Nangong Yuyan cursed under her breath. Once they entered this place, their strength would be suppressed. Moreover, the higher their strength, the more difficult it would be to move around in this place. Even though they had not reached that level, the suppression of their strength had greatly reduced their skills. At this moment, seeing that she was being forced to retreat little by little, she who originally still had some leeway in her attack, clenched her teeth, and ferociously attacked towards Yuer's fatal place. If he really got hurt, then she really couldn't be blamed. After all, she had cultivated for many years, so when she became ruthless, the swift and fierce sword Orochi also attacked around Yuer's body. Because of this, Yuer's body was also cut by that swift and fierce sword Orochi, and traces of blood seeped out. Junior sister Haoer and Mu Chun saw that her body was cut by the sword Qi. Although there were no big wounds, there were many small wounds. Blood seeped out from her body, blooming on her pink dress like red plum blossoms. It was extremely dazzling. "I'm fine, I can do it," Yuer said, while using her eyes to stop them from coming over to help, letting them defeat Zhao Ziming first. "You are not my opponent," Nangong Yuyan said, and at the same time the sword aura in her hand attacked. Her long sword also chopped down towards Yuer's arm. Clang! Chapter 4786. Yuer's figure was merely that of a 5 or 6 years old child, so against an adult woman, her figure was at a disadvantage. Therefore, when that sharp sword was chopping down towards her, the strength of the other party also pressed down. Even though Yuer was tightly holding her dagger to block, but she was also gradually pressed down. And also at this time, the gaze of Nangong Yuyan swept past her arm, and suddenly the sword in her hand turned, and slashed towards her arm. Xiao! At an extremely fast speed, the sword slashed across the arm of Yuer. In that instant, a sword mark appeared on her sleeve, and a slanted sword mark also appeared on her tender little arm. At the same time, blood seeped out from her arm, and Nangong Yuyan couldn't help but smile. "You are out." This sword of hers had nearly slashed her entire arm, so naturally it had also slashed the petal on the inner side of her arm. Now that the transfer petal was destroyed, and at the same time blood seeped out, she would naturally be transferred out. Who would have thought that just when her voice fell, just when she was smiling, Yuer endured the pain in her arm and revealed a fox-like crafty smile. That may not be so. Taking advantage of the moment when she was complacent, Nangong Yuyen's dagger pressed against her sword, and when the dagger neared her hand, the dagger suddenly turned, and the sharp dagger directly slashed that transfer petal on the inner side of her arm. Hiss! You! Nangong Yuyen screamed because of the pain, and angrily glared at the little girl in front of her. But she was startled by the thing that had fallen on the ground. Chong! A gold coin with golden radiance fell on the stone on the ground, giving out a sharp and clear sound. And at the same time, seeing that gold coin, Nangong Yuyen was startled and firmly stared at that bleeding arm of the little girl in front of her. Her sword had slashed across her arm, but the area where the flower petal had not been injured by the sword. The fallen gold coin had protected the flower petal, so the flower petal was still on her arm unharmed. How can this? Before she could finish her sentence, the petals on her arm were cut open, and she was instantly teleported away along with the petals. Only her unfinished words were left echoing in the air. Outside the mirror, everyone who saw this scene was speechless for a long time. They couldn't hide the shock and astonishment in their hearts. They never thought that the little baby would actually protect the petal with a gold coin, and that the gold coin would also block the wound caused by the sword. After a while, they looked at Emperor Qing, who was looking at the image in the mirror, and couldn't help but mutter in their hearts, "Emperor Qing is a monster, and his 3 disciples are also more abnormal than the other. I'm really convinced. The 3 people on the other side are really convinced." A young man sitting behind their master said. His eyes were filled with admiration and amazement as he looked at the little girl in the mirror. How can she be so powerful? Why would she think of using gold coins to protect that petal? If we had thought of this earlier, we probably wouldn't have been eliminated so quickly. Chapter 4787. During the banquet, everyone was discussing, and it was not difficult to discover that they were full of admiration for the 3 children. After all, these people who were in their teens didn't stay in there as long as the 3 of them. After coming out, they saw the 3's ability to adapt. In this world that worshipped the strength of the strong, even if the 3 of them were still young, they were still worthy of praise and admiration. At this time, looking at the scene in the mirror, Immortal couldn't help but shake his head and smile. Looking at Emperor Qing beside him, he said, "It seems that my late master's 9-section red flame phoenix scale whip can't be kept. But I didn't expect that there would be a day when this old man actually misjudged. A miscalculation, ah!" Emperor Qing glanced at him and smiled. Lightly swaying the wine cup in his hand, he took a sip of wine and said, "Didn't I give you something? Even if it's a loss, it won't be too much of a loss. What's more, you have no use for that whip inside, it's just right to give it to my disciple." Immortal smiled and didn't speak, only looking at the scene in the mirror. Even if he gave it, they must be able to take it out first. Just wait and see. In the mirror, when Zhao Ziming saw that his junior sister Nangong Yuyen was actually defeated by that little girl and was sent out, he was also startled. In this moment of distraction, he felt pain in his arm and his heart sank. Looking down, he couldn't help but bitterly smile. Blood was seeping out of the petals on his arm, and the petals were disappearing. In the next moment, he didn't even have time to say a word before his whole person was directly sent out. "How are you? Are your injuries serious? Quickly apply some medicine." After Hao Er and Mu Chun dealt with Zhao Ziming, they quickly came to Yu Er's side. Seeing the deep wound on her arm, they couldn't help but feel distressed. "It's very painful, right?" Mu Chun said as he held her hand, his little face full of worry. "It's very painful. Eldest senior brother, apply the medicine gently, I'm afraid of pain." Yu Er wrinkled her little face and said with a pitiful look, "All right, eldest senior brother, be gentler. Bear with it." As Hao Er spoke, he carefully applied medicine for her and bandaged her wound. "Little junior sister, just stay here and watch. We'll get that whip for you later." Hao said, and asked her to go to the side to rest. Yu-er's arm was very painful, but at this moment she didn't try to be brave. Merely nodding her head, she said, eldest senior brother, second senior brother, you two be a bit more careful. We know. Only then did they look at the Luan Feng that had stopped above them. In the next moment, they took a deep breath and flew towards the Luan Feng. Outside the mirror, the people watching the scene could not help but ponder. They looked at Immortal Lingwood and asked, Immortal Lingwood, could it be that the 9-section Flame Phoenix Scale Whip is this Luan Feng? Celestial Lingwood smiled as he stroked his beard and looked at the crowd. He smiled and said, Everyone might not know, but this Luan Phoenix isn't a beast. It is the weapon spirit of the 9-section Red Flame Phoenix Scale Whip. It has always appeared as a weapon spirit in the Mirror Flower Water Moon spirit realm. No wonder we only knew that the 9-section Red Flame Phoenix Scale Whip was in the depths of the spirit realm, but no one knew where it was hidden. So that's how it is. An old immortal nodded in realization. The doubts in his heart were finally resolved. Chapter 4788. Hearing this, everyone's heart trembled. Did he mean that the 3 disciples of the Azure Arch would have to retrieve the whip in the end? Thinking of their performance inside, everyone felt that it was not impossible. Thinking of this, everyone's gaze once again turned towards the spirit realm. In the spirit realm, Yu-er saw her 2 brothers joining hands to deal with the Luan Feng. The Luan Feng flapped its wings and released flames towards the 2 of them. The 2 of them quickly dodged as they faced the attack. What they wanted to do was to make the Luan Feng submit, not take its life. Therefore, they felt somewhat restrained in the battle. Yu-er saw that the 2 of them seemed to be dodging the Luan Feng, and did not injure it much. On the contrary, her 2 brothers' shoulders were scratched by the Luan Feng's claws. Seeing that their shoulders were bleeding, she somewhat could not sit still. She stood up with a dagger in her hand and said, Senior brothers, let me help you. This was originally to help her obtain the whip. Seeing that they were injured, how could she continue to watch from the side? They were not willing to do it, but she was not. Since it dared to injure her brothers, she must properly teach that Luan Feng a lesson. When the 2 of them heard her voice, they turned around to take a look. They saw her gathering her chi and flying towards them. With a somersault in the air, she actually sat on the back of the Luan Feng. Be careful of getting hurt, Hao whispered, afraid that she would be injured by the flames. How dare you injure my senior brothers, see if I don't kill you! Yu-er shouted. Her soft voice did not have any lethality, but as soon as she spoke, the dagger in her hand ruthlessly stabbed into the Luan Feng's body. For some unknown reason, the flames on the Luan Feng's body were extinguished when she stepped on it. Junior sister, that will kill it. Hao and Mu Chen were shocked by her ferocious attitude. The 2 of them did not expect that she would actually take advantage of the time when they were attacking the Luan Feng. Taking advantage of the fact that the Luan Feng was unprepared, she actually held the dagger in her hand and stabbed into the Luan Feng's body. At that moment, they felt an ancient pressure pervading from her body, forcibly suppressing the aura on the Luan Feng's body. Even the flames on the Luan Feng's body disappeared because of the ancient pressure. Hiss! That blade had truly pierced into the body of Luan Feng. After that, Luan Feng screamed, and no one knew whether it was because it was afraid of the pressure emitted from Yu-er's body at that instant or because it was truly injured. Luan Feng unexpectedly retracted its wings and dived down from midair. With a flash of red radiance, Luan Feng changed into a whip and fell to the ground. And that whip was still stained with blood. Yu-er was also startled. Although she had ruthlessly stabbed that dagger, but she had never thought that after stabbing, this Luan Feng would so obediently turn into a whip. Hao and Mu Chen exchanged glances when they saw this scene. They knew that this was probably more or less related to the ancient pressure that their younger sister had released earlier. However, that pressure had come and gone extremely quickly, so it shouldn't have been noticed by others. Chapter 4789. The handle of the whip was the head of a luan phone. The entire whip was a fiery red color, and there were 9 sections on it. Holding it in her hand, she could feel a trace of heat coming from the whip. Put it away first. Let's go out, so that master won't be worried, Hauer said and asked her to put the whip away. Okay. Ewer smiled sweetly and happily. She put the whip away in her space and cut the petals on the inner side of her arm with them. In the next moment, a light enveloped them and instantly transported them out. Outside the mirror, at the banquet, everyone looked at each other in dismay when they saw the scene in the mirror. No one had expected that they would obtain the 9-section flame phoenix scale whip like this. Moreover, the person who obtained it was a 5 or 6-year-old little girl. It could only be said that their feelings were complicated. When the 3 of them came out of the mirror and saw that their injuries had all healed, they couldn't help but smile. Then, they quickly walked forward. When they arrived at the banquet, Yuer's voice had already entered Emperor Qing's ears before she even arrived. Master, master, I got the whip! She ran over and took out the whip from her space, as if she was presenting a treasure to her master. She happily said, Master, look, this is the whip. It was transformed from a luan phone. Master. Hao and Mu Chen also came in front of Emperor Qing and respectfully bowed to him. And have a seat. Emperor Qing gestured with a satisfied smile and let them sit down. Yes. The 2 of them answered and walked behind him and sat down. Emperor Qing picked up the whip and looked at it. Then, he looked at Immortal Lingmu and said, Immortal Lingmu, this whip has been obtained by my little disciple. Immortal Lingmu smiled bitterly and said, Yes, I really didn't expect this. He took out an ancient book from his space and looked at the little girl. He waved his hand and called out, Little girl Yunqi, come here, come here. Yuer looked at her master and saw that he nodded his head. Then, she came in front of Immortal Lingmu and respectfully bowed. She called out, Immortal Lingmu. Truly an amazing child. From today onwards, that whip is yours. Also, this whip technique book is also given to you. Take it back and cultivate properly. Immortal Lingmu smiled and handed the book to her. Then, he lightly patted her head. Yes, thank you, Immortal Lingmu. Yuer happily smiled and received the book with both hands. Then, she ran back to her master's side. Emperor Qing's Immortal Lingmu and said. Then, he handed the whip in front of Yuer. He said, bind it. Hearing what was said, Yuer bit her finger, and dripped a drop of blood on that whip. After that the body of that whip flashed with radiance, as if a wisp of red flame quickly streaked across it. Take it. Emperor Qing placed the whip in her hand and said, This whip can change at will. It can be long or short. It can turn into a dagger or a soft sword. It can even turn into a red silk. In the future, you have to cultivate properly. This treasure can become an extremely powerful weapon in battle. Yes, disciple will remember. Yuer happily replied. She took the whip and wrapped it around her waist. Chapter 4790. Today we have broadened our horizons. Emperor Qing's 3 beloved disciples are truly outstanding, dragons and phoenixes among men. Ah! Another immortal said with a smile, and his gaze landed on the 3 children, full of fondness. Such good seedlings, how come they didn't encounter them? Everyone congratulated one by one, and a string of praises came out from their mouth. Hearing this, Emperor Qing also smiled, and felt happy in his heart. He looked towards Zinan Immortal Monarch who had ugly complexion, and said, Zinan Immortal Monarch seems to have not given the thing that you lost to this emperor. Hearing this, Zinan Immortal Monarch's mouth pulled up, revealing a stiff smile. He glanced at Emperor Qing, then took out a golden silk soft armor that was emitting purple-gold radiance from his space, and with a move of his hand, the thing in his hand flew up and landed in front of Emperor Qing. Emperor Qing, keep it properly, this is purple sun golden silk soft armor. Seeing his own treasure changed owner like this, his heart was in pain. Emperor Qing's lips slightly curled up, Then looking at the golden silk soft armor in front of him, he said to Ura, "Little Chi, this is what you won, take it." Hearing this, Ura was startled, and somewhat didn't understand, then blinking her beautiful eyes, she curiously asked, "Master, how come Disciple won it? Disciple didn't do anything ah." Ha ha ha! Emperor Qing softly laughed, then looking at Nan, immortal monarch whose complexion was ugly and pained, he said, "Didn't you kill that huge python?" Nan, immortal monarch, made a bet with Master, and the result was that you lost this treasure. He smiled, and as if unintentionally, he stretched out his hand and stroked this golden silk soft armor that was emitting purple gold radiance, then casually said, "This thing is one of the rare treasures of Nan, immortal monarch. Wearing it on the body is a life-saving treasure, moreover it is also helpful for cultivation. Its degree of preciousness, even Nan, immortal monarch himself, is reluctant to wear it. Today you're really lucky, little girl." Hearing this, Ura's eyes shone, then revealing a crafty smile, she bowed towards Nan, immortal monarch, then crisply said, "So it is this kind of treasure, many thanks Nan, immortal monarch." The corners of Nan, immortal monarch's mouth twitched when he heard the words of the master and disciple. He revealed a stiff smile. "You are the capable one. If this little girl hadn't really killed that giant python herself, how could he have lost that treasure?" Now, there was no point in saying anything more. Ura turned around, looked towards her master, and asked, "Master, can Disciple give this treasure to eldest senior brother?" "Of course." The Azure Emperor smiled and nodded. Ura was slightly taken aback. He stood up and said, "Master, I also have a protective soft armor. Let's give this to junior sister." "Eldest senior brother, Master said that this is a good treasure. Just accept it. Wearing it could even help one's cultivation. Hereafter, when you become even more powerful, you will be able to protect us even better." Ura said with a beaming smile, then picked up that soft armor and placed it in his hand. "Since your junior sister has said so, just accept it," Emperor Qing said. Seeing this, Ura nodded his head. "Yes." Turning to look at Ura, he revealed a gentle smile. "Many thanks, junior sister." Chapter 4791. "All right," Mu Chen replied with a smile. He was not angry that his sister gave the soft armor to his elder brother because he was their elder brother. They would naturally want to share good things with him. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned and a little surprised. After all, that was a rare treasure. The little girl gave it to her eldest senior brother just like that. It really surprised them. What was even more surprising was that the little girl actually said that she would snatch a good treasure and give it to her second senior brother next time. Just hearing this made their hearts tighten. Did they have any treasures that others coveted? After confirming that there was none, they secretly heaved a sigh of relief. If there really was a treasure that caught their eye, it would be hard to say if they could keep it. "Haha, I think everyone is tired. Why don't you go to the rooms and rest first?" Immortal Ling Mu said with a smile and instructed the immortal servants to bring everyone to the guest rooms to rest. Ura had obtained the whip and the whip technique book and wanted to go back and study it. When she heard her master stand up, she immediately prepared to leave. Unexpectedly, the Qing Emperor glanced at the three of them and said, "Follow the immortal servants to the guest rooms to rest. Master and immortal Ling Mu will play 2 games of chess." "Yes." The three of them replied and left with the immortal servants. In the other corner of the sky, the strange phenomenon continued. In the sky, celestial music reverberated, a rainbow stretched across the sky, cranes flew, magpies chirped, and 7-colored auspicious clouds floated. In the midst of this auspicious phenomenon, a celestial island rose from below and floated in the sky amidst a stretch of holy light. An exquisite and magnificent celestial palace was naturally built in the holy light. On the celestial island, hundreds of flowers bloomed, and spirit trees bore fruit. Celestial chi lingered in the air. It was a beautiful sight to behold, There were also flower fairies who transformed into human forms. Their colorful clothes fluttered in the air as they danced among the flowers. The two red-crowned cranes in the air transformed into two white-robed fairies. They held flower petals in their hands and danced in the air, gently sprinkling the petals as they chatted and laughed. Amidst the rain of holy light, Emo-chan, dressed in white, slowly descended from the sky and landed on the floating island. As the golden light on his body dissipated, the strange phenomenon in the sky also gradually disappeared. Only the immortal servant in human form respectfully knelt on the ground and congratulated him. "Congratulations on your ascension, holy Emperor. May you live as long as the heavens and earth, and shine as brightly as the sun and moon. Immortal monarchs from all over the world are here to pay their respects to the sage Emperor. Congratulations on your ascension. May you live as long as the heavens and earth, and shine as brightly as the sun and moon." The celestial lords and celestial elders that had arrived outside the celestial island at some point in time came to offer their congratulations. The ascended celestial emperor was their master. Even if they were celestial lords and celestial elders, even if they were from powerful clans, they still had to come here to pay their respects to the ascended celestial emperor. However, everyone was unfamiliar with this newly ascended great emperor. They didn't know where this person had ascended from. What kind of person was he in the past? How did he ascend to become a celestial emperor from the lower realm? However, even if they were curious and wanted to investigate, they did not dare to be impudent. Without his permission, even if they were celestial lords, they did not dare to enter the celestial island of this celestial emperor. Chapter 4792. "Everyone, please come in." Emo-chan's voice was neither fast nor slow. It contained a powerful aura of spiritual energy and clearly entered everyone's ears. When everyone heard the voice coming from inside, they looked at each other and walked in together. When they arrived inside, the door of the immortal mansion was open. They walked in and saw the immortal-like man in white sitting on the main seat in the palace. When they saw how young this man was, their eyes flashed and they were slightly surprised. They cupped their hands and bowed. "Greetings, Saint Emperor. Congratulations on your ascension." All of them had cultivated for many years to reach the level of a divine king and were respectfully addressed as immortal masters or immortal elders. They did not expect this young man to possess the strength of a peak supreme being and ascend. He had obtained the right to live as long as the heavens and earth. They had to admit that comparisons were odious. They were both envious and shocked, but most of all they were in awe of him. To be able to ascend to this level at such a young age, one could see how outstanding his talent and cultivation were. "Everyone, there's no need to be so polite. Please take a seat." Emo-chan gestured for them to sit on both sides. "Yes, thank you, Saint Emperor." They thanked him and moved to sit on both sides. When they sat down, their gazes fell on the Saint Emperor sitting on the main seat. They were even more shocked. They did not look carefully before, so they did not notice. Now they realized that the Saint Emperor had cultivated an immortal body. Moreover, the golden lotus mark between his eyebrows was floating, and his body was shining with a holy light. His entire being was enveloped in holy light. It was also because of this that they were called Saint Emperors. After all, when they ascended earlier, the vast expanse of saint light that illuminated the land was not something that ordinary people could possess. Now, it seemed that it was the light reflected by the saint light of the golden lotus. After one's strength reached the peak supreme being level and ascended to become an immortal, there was no immortal rank to be ranked, only great emperors. As for those present, some of them were at the peak of the God-King realm, while others were at the early stages of the Venerable realm. Due to the age of their bones, they were known as immortal monarchs or immortal elders. Even though their strength had reached such a level, they were still unable to ascend to the immortal realm and become a sovereign realm emperor. Therefore, even though they were highly sought after outside, they were still extremely respectful in front of this newly ascended great emperor. They did not dare to be presumptuous at all. It's been nearly 1,000 years since a cultivator has ascended to immortality. Seeing the Holy Emperor ascend today is truly a joyous occasion. An immortal old man stood up and said. Then, he smiled and cupped his hands at him. After that, he said, "This old man is immortal old man Mu Hua, the ancestor of the Duan clan in Jingxian City. Today, I have specially brought a gift to congratulate the great emperor." As he spoke, he flicked his sleeve, and 4 chests of treasures appeared in the middle of the palace, as well as 2 rare and large objects. After the first one started to present gifts, the others also stood up one after another as they took out treasures from the space and presented them. After a short while, all kinds of treasures were piled up in the middle of the hall like a small hill, glittering and dazzling on the other side. Imo-chin was chatting with everyone in the main hall, inquiring about the situation in the territory he was in charge of. Time passed by quietly. Chapter 4793. In the airship, Yu sat beside Emperor Qing and asked, Master, can we go see Uncle Imo-chin? Uncle Imo-chin has ascended, can we go see him? Emperor Qing closed his eyes and supported his head with one hand. When he heard Yu-er's words, he didn't even open his eyes and said, "No." "Why? No one will recognize us like this." Yu-er blinked her eyes and said with a puzzled expression. Hearing this, Emperor Qing opened his eyes and sat up straight. He glanced at the 2 people not far away and the little girl sitting beside him and said slowly, "Your mother didn't send you to visit your relatives when you have time. If you have time, you'd better cultivate more." He looked at Yu-er and asked, "Have you memorized the whip technique?" "I've memorized it, but I haven't practiced it completely," Yu-er said softly. "Then put some thought into it and don't think about other things. Before you can take charge, I won't let you see the people you know," he said slowly and looked at the 3 of them. "After we go back, all of you go into seclusion and cultivate." "Yes," the 3 of them answered. Yu-er left his side and went to her 2 brothers. The 3 of them went into the cabin and whispered. After the 3 of them followed their master back to the mountain, they were ordered to cultivate in seclusion and couldn't leave the mountain. Therefore, time passed quickly and another year passed in the blink of an eye in the lower immortal realm. Fengjiu dressed in red once again came to the eastern sea spirit region. Du Fan, Ling Hua, and Ling Shuang were guarding this region. They hadn't seen their master for a year, and were very happy to see her return. Master, I heard you said you were coming back. I didn't expect you to come back so quickly." "Master, you've been alone outside these days. Is everything all right?" The 3 of them came to her side and asked with unconcealable concern in their eyes. Fengjiu smiled and said, "Yes, I'm fine." She looked at the sea and asked, "Is everything normal here?" "Yes, Master. Everything is as per normal. Because of Master's orders, we didn't go down to the sea to check. We don't know how the Yama Lord is doing in the past year," Du Fan said as his gaze fell on the surface of the sea. "This year, no one went to the sea to disturb you, right?" Fengjiu asked slowly. "No. After those people found out that the Yama Lord was recuperating in the sea, they didn't come to disturb him again. In the past year, the cultivators who were originally guarding the area have gradually dispersed. No one dares to sneak into the sea again. Master, it's getting late. Why don't we rest on the ship?" Ling Shuang suggested. "All right," Fengjiu responded and followed the 3 of them to the spaceship. The Phoenix Guards were very happy to see her and were all prepared to welcome her. Everyone divided up the work. Some went to hunt while others prepared other dishes. When night fell, everyone sat together to eat, drink, and chat. Fengjiu also told them about what she had seen and encountered in the past year. "I'm sure you all know about Imo-chen's ascension. In the past year, I specially went to the Nalan family and told his father about it," Fengjiu said as she took a sip of wine and looked at the sky. She couldn't help but squint. Chapter 4794. She even felt that the day of Mo Chen's ascension was just yesterday. But unknowingly, a year had passed in the blink of an eye. Master, the news of young Master Mo Chen's ascension has gradually spread. Many people are very surprised. After all, so many people saw him disappear between heaven and earth. Who would have thought that he would ascend first in the end? Leng Hua said, looking at Fengjiu. He asked, Master, in this year, did those people still send people to kill you? Fengjiu curled his lips, revealing a faint smile. He said, Even if they want to kill me, they can't reach here. With the disparity in strength, it's easier said than done to take my life. Master, in this year, Monarch Black Tortoise has come to look for you a few times. Du Fan said, looking at him. The most recent time was a month ago. He came with his wife, saying that he wanted to see young Master. Want to see Hao Fengjiu sneered. Does Hao have anything to do with them? That relationship was broken 800 years ago. How dare they come here and say that they want to see Hao? Du Fan and the others did not speak. They knew that when Master took Hao away, he had some disagreements with Monarch Black Tortoise and his wife. Perhaps as time passed, they remembered their eldest son and knew that they had gone too far. But now, it was impossible to see Hao. A few of them came, but they were all persuaded to leave. The most recent one to persuade them to leave was me. They said that they wished to see Master and apologize to Master personally. They also hoped that young Master would forgive them. Du Fan said. Fengjiu's eyes were cold. He said, In the future, if they come, just drive them away. As for other things, especially news about Hao do not let them know anything. Yes, they replied. In fact, when Hao Mu Chen and Mu Yu left, only these trusted subordinates knew where they went. No one else knew. I have to go to the sea tomorrow, so I won't be drinking wine. You guys should drink less. Fengjiu stood up and said to Leng Shuang, Do you have hot water? Yes, Master, it's ready. Leng Shuang stood up and led her to the cabin. Du Fan rubbed his nose and said, Perhaps I shouldn't have told Master about this. He knew that Master would not be in a good mood after hearing this. Leng Hua patted him on the shoulder and said, Master, perhaps you're just tired. Besides, I still have to say this. You didn't do anything wrong. Alright, let's get rid of everything. Master will be going to the sea tomorrow. Don't drink wine, lest you make a mistake. As Du Fan spoke, he had everyone take away the wine and dishes. The next morning, Fengjiu went into the sea alone and went to the place where Mose was sleeping. Perhaps after another year of nourishment, his body seemed to have become more solid under the sea. Looking at his familiar face that seemed to be in a deep sleep, her eyes were filled with gentleness and affection. He was still here. Even if he was at the bottom of the sea, even if he had not woken up yet to her, he was still here. One day, he would wake up and return to her side, to her and their children's side. Chapter 4795. She stayed at the bottom of the sea for an entire day and night, continuously transferring her green lotus chi to him. It was only the next day when she felt exhausted that she withdrew her hand and withdrew her green lotus chi. Moze, I'm preparing to ascend. You stay here and recuperate well. After I ascend, I'll kill all the people who caused you this much harm and avenge you. If you haven't woken up by then, I'll bring the children back to see you. She spoke softly and raised her hand to gently caress his face. Then, she bent down and kissed him on the lip. However, when she kissed his lips, it was as if she had kissed the surface of the water. The faint sound of water rippling could be heard. She took a step back and looked at him quietly. Her eyes were filled with reluctance, longing, and determination. Don't worry, I'm ready. I'll definitely ascend successfully. She spoke softly and looked deeply into his eyes. Then, she retreated step by step until she was some distance away. Then, she set up the barrier again and left the bottom of the sea. She returned to the surface of the sea and landed in her flying ship. She quietly stared at the surface of the sea with a calm heart. Du Fan, Ling Hua, and Ling Shuang were standing behind her. When they saw her standing there quietly without saying a word, the three of them looked at each other and didn't say anything either. They just stood quietly behind her. After a long while, Fengjiu turned around and gave the three of them some instructions. Then, he returned to the cabin to rest. Is Master all right? He doesn't look too well. Ling Shuang was a little worried. He's probably just tired. He's fine. Du Fan said. I wonder how the Yama Lord is doing right now? Ling Hua looked at the surface of the sea and said softly. I don't think he's getting much better. Otherwise, Master wouldn't have come up alone. He should have brought him up with him. Du Fan sighed softly and said, Back then, Master said that he couldn't bring the Yama Lord away from the bottom of the Spirit Sea. Otherwise, how could Master bear to leave the Yama Lord alone in the deep sea? Ling Hua and Ling Shuang fell silent when they heard this. Indeed, if they could bring the Yama Lord out, how could their master bear to leave the Yama Lord alone in the deep sea? However, they didn't know when the Yama Lord would awaken. What they didn't expect was that their master's rest for 3 days. 3 days later, Feng Jiu came out of the cabin in the morning. She didn't look as tired as she did a few days ago, and her mental state had recovered very well. Master. When the three of them saw that she had come out and that her mental state had recovered, they finally relaxed. Fengjiu responded and walked out. She sat down at the table at the bow of the ship and motioned to them. You guys sit down too. I have something to tell you. Hearing this, the three of them looked at each other and sat down. They asked, What is Master's order? I'm preparing to undergo the tribulation and ascend, so you'll have to take care of everything in the future. In addition, I didn't tell the Feng family's old residents about my ascension, so after I ascend, you'll have to tell them. Chapter 4796. Hearing her words, the three of them were silent for a while. Finally, Du Fan asked, Mistress, how long will it take for the Yama Lord to wake up? Also, is Mistress ready for your ascension? Have you confirmed that nothing will go wrong? If the people above take advantage of your ascension and attack you, then... Fengjiu smiled and said, I don't know when he will wake up, but when he wakes up, it will be the time of his ascension. All you need to do is to guard him. Don't worry about anything else. As for my ascension, don't worry. I'm ready. I know that those people want to kill me, so I won't give them a chance. Also, she paused and looked at the sky above her head. The corners of her lips curled into an arc. Her voice was soft and cold as she said, My ascension will be a contest between me and them. Once I ascend, they will no longer be able to do as they please. Instead, they will be the ones getting anxious. Mistress, let's go protect you, Du Fan said. 3 days ago, I informed my brother and sister that the place I've chosen for my ascension is the East Sea Spirit region. They should be here in a few days. Luo Yu and the rest will be here too. Fengjiu looked at them and said, Listen carefully. When I ascend, spiritual energy will be everywhere within 100 meters. Immortal Qi will be lingering. This immortal Qi is an opportunity for cultivators. You must seize this opportunity and see if it can help you. They looked at each other and nodded, yes. Fengjiu raised her head and looked at the sky. Her eyes were filled with determination and conviction as she said slowly, Currently, the various layers of the heaven realm are separated, but one day in the future, I will definitely open the door that connects the 9 layers of the heaven realm, break through the layers of isolation, and let the 9 layers of heaven and earth become one. Hearing this, the three of them were shocked. Their eyes shone with a scorching light as they looked at their master. They could not help but smile. We believe that Mistress can do it. They didn't know about others, but their mistress could do it. The next morning, before dawn, Fengjiu was already sitting on a huge rock near the sea of the East Sea Spirit domain. She was dressed in red, and her black hair was not tied up with anything. Instead, it cascaded down her back naturally. The sea breeze gently brushed against her face, as if a pair of gentle hands were gently lifting up her hair. Because Fengjiu was ascending here, all the people and beasts within 100 li of this place had been chased away by the Phoenix Guards. The rest of the people had not arrived yet, only the Phoenix team was guarding this place, accompanied by Du Fan, Leng Hua, and Leng Shuang. Because of Fengjiu's instructions, they stood far away, dozens of meters away from her, quietly watching and guarding her. Their hearts were in turmoil, and they were very worried. With Yama Lord as a precedent, even if their mistress said that it was fine and that she was prepared, they still couldn't help but worry. However, they also knew that their worries couldn't help her. All they could do was quietly guard her from afar, and not let anyone disturb her, so that she could ascend without worry. Chapter 4797. At this moment, her mood was calm and her heart was firm. She knew what she had to do, what she had to face, and the path she had to choose. As she closed her eyes, the first rays of the morning sun rose from the eastern sea and dyed the seawater golden. Her hands gently moved, and after mobilizing the spiritual energy in her body, she slowly formed a lotus shape with her hands and placed them on her legs. Pure spiritual energy surged out from her body and pervaded her surroundings. The ancient mythological beast's pressure was also released at this moment, mixing with the pure spiritual energy in her body and surging. The surging of the spiritual energy caused her robes to emit a whistling sound, and her black hair fluttered in the wind. The aura in the sky and the aura on the sea gradually surged because of her, and clouds began to gather. The morning sky was originally blue and cloudless, but at this moment, as Fengjiu's aura surged and released the pressure from her body, layers of clouds began to condense and float over from afar. They gradually gathered above the East Sea, forming a large layer of dark clouds. The morning sun that rose from the east was already covered by the thick clouds, and not a single ray of light could be seen. Strong winds blew on the surface of the sea, and the waves crashed, splashing up waves. In the sky, muffled sounds of thunder could be heard, one after another. It was as if a huge bolt of lightning was gathering, and it did not fall for a long time. Lightning flashed through the clouds, but there was still no bolt of lightning. In the distance, Du Fan, Leng Hua, and Leng Shuang were watching with their hearts in their mouth. Their palms were sweaty. They looked at their mistress, then looked at the dark clouds in the sky, and the huge bolt of lightning that seemed to be gathering above her head and was about to strike. "Don't worry, Mistress will definitely be fine. Mistress said that everything is ready. She is confident that nothing will happen. Don't worry, don't worry." Du Fan nervously muttered to himself. It was unknown whether he was comforting the two people beside him or himself. Time passed, and at the first moment of the morning, a bolt of lightning flashed and a bolt of lightning struck from the clouds, accurately striking Fengjiu below. Boom! The sound of the bolt of lightning seemed to have penetrated half the sky and reached the clouds. As it echoed in the sky, it alarmed the experts in all directions. After the bolt of lightning struck her, several bolts of lightning fell from the sky, forming several lightning pillars that surrounded Fengjiu. The lightning pillars formed from the lightning pillars reached the sea and the clouds, making crackling sounds. There were even traces of electricity that shot out from the lightning pillars, making people's hair stand on end, and their hearts clenched tightly. At the same time, when the experts in all directions heard the bolt of lightning, they were stunned. Lightning? Who is advancing? The sound of the heavenly thunder sounds different from before. It seems, this is the ascension lightning tribulation? Why is another person ascending? A year ago, Mo Chun ascended to the 9 heavens. A year later, could it be Fengjiu? Chapter 4798. It must be the ghost Dr. Fengjiu who has ascended. Other than the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, there's no one else. Quick, let's go take a look. Experts from all sides rushed towards the source of the heavenly thunder after hearing it. In the past, they would not have had the chance to witness the ascension of an expert. However, Xianyuan Mo's, Fengjiu, and Nalen Emochen had appeared in this world. Each of them had the cultivation of a sovereign at such a young age, especially Mo Chen, who had successfully ascended. Now that it was Fengjiu's turn, they could not help but feel excited. Perhaps, another supreme great emperor who had ascended to the 9 heavens was about to be born. Some people were overjoyed. Now that the demon Fengjiu had left, this place would be theirs. In the future, they would not have to worry about anything they did. Therefore, experts from all sides rushed towards the source of the heavenly thunder with various emotions. They wanted to see what was going on. In the upper immortal realm of the 9 heavens, Mo Chen, who was floating in the immortal abode on the immortal island, opened his eyes and smiled when he heard the heavenly thunder. His expression was calm and gentle, but the light in his eyes was filled with joy and anticipation. Fengjiu, she's finally coming. On the other side, when the great emperors heard the heavenly thunder from the lower immortal realm, their expressions changed instantly. Who else would dare to ascend from the lower immortal realm, except for the ghost Dr. Fengjiu? Damn it! I can't believe that we still can't take her life after trying everything we can for more than a year. She's still thinking of ascending to become an immortal after living for so long? She's overestimating herself. One of the great emperors stepped out of the palace and looked at the sky with his hands behind his back. When he heard the heavenly thunder, his face darkened. That's good too. Since she dares to ascend, we can take advantage of her ascension to kill her. He revealed a sinister smile. In the next moment, with a flick of his sleeve, he disappeared on the spot. When the azure arch of Cloud Sky Mountain heard the thunder, he raised his brows and muttered, "This Fengjiu is really bold. How long has it been? He dared to ascend? Looks like she's really prepared?" After he finished speaking, he paused for a moment and walked out of the cave. He walked outside with his hands behind his back and looked at the sky. As he listened to the thunder in the sky, he revealed a playful smile and murmured, "I wonder if she can really ascend successfully." "Master, Master!" The 3 children descended from the sky on their swords. Their faces were filled with anxiety and worry as they quickly arrived in front of him. The Lotus Emperor glanced at the 3 of them and asked, "Why are you here instead of cultivating?" "Master, is my mother undergoing the ascension tribulation?" Howard asked, his gaze falling on him. Among the 3 of them, he was the oldest. Thus, when he heard the heavenly thunder, he immediately thought that it was very likely that their mother was undergoing the ascension tribulation. "Master, Master, is it my mother? Will my mother be able to ascend successfully? Will she be in danger?" Yuer went forward and tugged at his sleeve. Her small face was filled with worry. Chapter 4799. Mu Chen didn't say anything, but he looked at their master nervously. He wanted to know if it was their mother, as their elder brother had said. Emperor Qing glanced at the 3 of them and pulled back his sleeve, which was being pulled by Yuer. He slowly walked to the stone table under the tree and sat down. He said, "In this world of immortals, there's no one else who has the ability to ascend except your parents. Your father, Xianyuan Mose, failed to ascend last time, so naturally, it's impossible for him to ascend at this time. So, the person today is undoubtedly your mother. Then will our mother be in danger? Will she be able to ascend smoothly?" Mu Chen couldn't help but ask. "Master, will those people who want to harm my father and mother take this opportunity to make a move on my mother? Will it be very dangerous for my mother to ascend now?" Howard asked worriedly. "Master!" Yuer hurriedly called out. Emperor Qing raised his hand and stopped them from asking further. "Those who want to harm her will naturally not let go of such a good opportunity. Whether she can ascend smoothly will naturally depend on your mother." "Master, I beg you to help our mother." Yuer knelt down, and raising her small face, she pitifully begged him. "Master! Master!" Howard and Mu Chen also knelt down. Although they didn't say it, their meaning was clear. "Get up." Emperor Qing looked at them and said, "It's useless to kneel because your mother's path is different from others. The things she will do in the future will be more difficult and dangerous than her ascension today. If she can't resolve the crisis and ascend smoothly today, how can she face her enemies in the future? He paused and glanced at them. Don't tell me that if she encounters danger in the future and encounters something she can't solve, you will kneel down and beg me to help her? You must know that everyone has their own mission, their own life, and their own difficulties. If you blindly rely on others for help, how long can others help you? When the three of them heard his words, they were momentarily stunned. Perhaps because they were still young, they didn't quite understand, but they vaguely understood what he meant. Thus, the three of them looked at each other and paused for a moment. Then, they lowered their heads and said in a low voice, "Master, we were insensible." Emperor Qing nodded and said, "You may rise." The three of them responded and stood up. Life and death are predestined. You don't have to worry. It's useless to worry. She has advanced today. She won't ascend in a day or two. Calm down and go back to cultivate, Emperor Qing said slowly. Hearing those words, the three of them moved their lips as if they wanted to say something. However, in the end, they didn't say anything. They only responded with a sound of acknowledgement before leaving together. Their mother was undergoing the heavenly lightning tribulation, so how could they calm down and cultivate? However, what could they do if they didn't cultivate? They were still young and couldn't help her with anything. Let's go. Let's go back and cultivate. We have to believe in Mother. She can definitely do it. Howard held their hands and said firmly, "Yes, Mother will definitely ascend safely. At that time, maybe we will be able to see her again." Yu nodded with a serious expression on her face. "Let's go back and cultivate," Mu Chen also said. The three of them returned to the cave residence. Chapter 4800. The heavenly thunder in the sky faintly reverberated in the various heavenly realms. Day after day, the heavenly thunder and the sound of lightning made people's hearts hang in suspense. One day, 2 days passed, and the heavenly thunder was still roaring. 3 bolts of lightning fell every day, and after 3 bolts of lightning fell, the next day would be the next. Just like that, 3 to 5 days passed. Those who thought that Fengjiu would not be able to hold on could not help but be very surprised. Fengjiu's heavenly thunder tribulation was different from Mo Chen's. It was the same as Xianyuan Mose's heavenly thunder tribulation. There were only 3 bolts of heavenly thunder a day, and each bolt was more powerful than the last. Seeing that Fengjiu had endured 49 bolts of heavenly thunder, and she was still sitting cross-legged below, unharmed, the 4 great emperors in the upper immortal realm could not help but feel anxious. How can this be? We have clearly increased the power of the heavenly thunder and lightning. How can she still hold on? One of them said, anxiously pacing up and down in the main hall with his hands behind his back. Could it really be the destined phoenix star? Could she really have such good fortune? Another great emperor's brows were also filled with worry. Fengjiu was so strong, and her luck was so heaven-defying. If she really succeeded in ascending, would she be able to live a peaceful life in the future? At that time, they would not rest until one of them was dead. Have you forgotten? She has the ancient green lotus in her body. Moreover, I noticed that after being tempered by heavenly thunder every day, her body would be enveloped in a layer of green aura, and a green lotus would appear between her eyebrows. It is said that this ancient green lotus is the head of the 4 lotuses, and has the ability to quickly recover. I reckon that the green lotus has something to do with her being able to hold on until now. Another great emperor frowned and said in a low voice. After thinking for a while, he said, I think that increasing the power of the heavenly thunder and lightning will not be able to defeat her. On the contrary, she can withstand it. Her bones and tendons have been tempered even more, and her immortal body will only become stronger in the future. I think we have to attack from another side. One of the great emperors who had not spoken all this time pondered for a while, then looked at the person who spoke and asked, Then in your opinion, how should we attack? Why don't we create a clone to deal with her? We can only deal with her if we go down there ourselves. Otherwise, no one in the lower immortal world is a match for her. If we can't obtain her personality now, then when she succeeds in her ascension, we'll have an endless battle to the death. If we send our clones down, our strength will also be restricted. I'm afraid that we won't be able to deal with her at all. Moreover, the risk is too great. Another person shook his head when he heard the first person's words. It was obvious that he refused. If you can't do this and you can't do that, then tell me, what should I do? The great emperor's mood became irritable when he heard that. Chapter 48:01. You're saying that when the last bolt of lightning strikes, the four of us will combine our strength to give her a heavy blow? One of them heard this and his expression changed slightly. No one knew what he was thinking. That's right. The great emperor nodded and said, although we've done something these days, we all know that the power of the lightning strikes is at most 20% of our strength. When the time comes, the four of us will each use 60 to 70% of our strength. Do you think that she can withstand 60 to 70% of our strength by herself? Will there be any risks? One of the more cautious great emperors asked hesitantly. What risks can there be? As long as we can kill her, even if she consumes too much spiritual energy and can't recover in a short period of time, what's the harm in resting for a while? The great emperor who made the suggestion said. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this method was feasible. The other two thought for a while and finally nodded. Okay, let's do it. Even if they had to hurt themselves, as long as they could kill the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, it would be worth it. Thus, the four of them began to conserve their strength. When the last bolt of lightning gathered and was ready to strike, the four of them would combine their strength to give Fengjiu a fatal blow. In the East Sea Spirit region, Guan Shilin and Wanyan Qianhua had arrived. Other than them, there were also the other captains of the 8 Phoenix Guards. They gathered here to guard her. While watching her advance, they were also worried. For the past few days, they had been watching the heavenly thunder in the sky strike Feng Ix's body with a terrifying airflow. At the same time as the heavenly thunder, there was also the lightning ray, which made them tremble with fear. Their hearts were tightly clenched, afraid that Feng Nine would not be able to bear it and fall down. She seems to be in a good condition. Wanyan Qianhua gently exhaled as he spoke. However, his hand was tightly holding Jun Jushang's hand. He didn't even realize that he had scratched a few marks on Jun Jushang's hand. Jun Jushang patted her hand gently and said, "Don't worry." This was not the first time she had experienced a tribulation. When had she not survived it? It's okay. Just relax. How can I relax? Mose is already in such a state, and he's still sleeping at the bottom of the sea. We don't even know when he'll wake up. If something happens to her, what should we do? The more she spoke, the more nervous and worried she became. Her beautiful eyes stared at Fengjiu in the distance. Xiao Jiu has already withstood 49 bolts of lightning. Don't worry. She'll be fine. I believe in her, Guan Shilin said, looking at Fengjiu in the distance. They couldn't see her clearly from here. One reason was because of the distance, and the other was because of the lightning pillars surrounding her. However, if they looked carefully, they could see the green lotus that appeared between her eyebrows, as well as the green lotus aura that emanated from her body after 3 bolts of lightning every day.